Hummel is one of Canada's most influential environmentalists. In 1969, while earning master's degrees in philosophy and forestry at the University of Toronto, he co-founded Pollution Probe. He subsequently joined World Wildlife Fund Canada and has been president since 1985. It's grown to be the country's largest environmental organization.
You're going to join us for the meeting tomorrow over lunch? Great. Because I know at Churchill,
Monte Hummel spends most of his time in cities, organizing, lobbying, and fundraising. He recently wrote Wintergreen, Reflections from Loon Lake, about his experiences in a special landscape. It's a wilderness area on the Canadian Shield, northwest of Kingston, Ontario. Here, for 30 years, Monte Hummel has taken time to come down to earth.
The great American conservationist Aldo Leopold said, all other months of the year are just times in between October. And on a day like this, I can see what he meant. Still, there's always a touch of melancholy and sadness in the air for me at this time of the year. Had a hard frost last night. There's sun on the tops of the trees. The geese are pouring over. It should be a beautiful day. Welcome to Loon Lake on the Canadian Shield. I love the simplicity of this place. It feeds my spirit, and I have to come here regularly. Sometimes I'm alone. Sometimes my family joins me, and we've certainly had many enjoyable times up here together. But in any case, they know this is where I'm going to be. This is the front stoop of my cabin. It's a perfect place to enjoy a cup of coffee in the morning, and a perfect place to watch the sunrise. At this time of the year, it's the length of day caused by that sun that's coming up now that cues everything. It's an underlying driving force to which wildlife and plants are very sensitive. So as the days get shorter and shorter, these changes occur and sets into motion a fundamental change called fall or autumn. Okay, here we go, what I kind of grandly call the bridge, which is really just planks laid down. This is interesting right away. This is winterberry here. This is a classic winterberry alder swamp. Robins are feeding on this as they come through now. I don't know if we'll see too much actual, well, here's some sign right here. An otter's been using this bridge as well, not just me. Right here, they've traversed up over here. I've actually seen pups, little young otters, with their parents moving along here when they haven't seen me, and they move up and down here, down into Loon Lake, do a little fishing down in the lake. Lots of winterberry in here, really pretty. Let's move along. I think there's some lady slippers down here, and they're beautiful pink flowers in the summer. Right now, all that'll be left of them are little dry seed pods, and maybe we can find one anyway. Let's go have a look. And this doesn't look like much now, but in June it was a gorgeous and gorged pink lady slipper orchid. Now it's just a dried seed husk. Come on back next June, it'll take your breath away. Okay, again, we may not see the critter itself, but obviously there's been a beaver working on this birch. Didn't get all the way around. If it did, it would have taken out the cambium and stopped the flow of the vital fluids up and down the tree. So this tree is still alive. Here's one here that's not still alive. Beaver took this one out. The beaver have really shaped this landscape, and that's an old cutting. I'm sure we'll see a lot more fresh beaver cuttings as we go along. If an aerial photograph will show you that it really, this land belongs to the beaver, not to us. It's very important to approach a pond quietly. There's a bit of wind today. Now, if there were turtles out here, they'd be out on those loafing logs. This is really one of my favorite spots. This is a little cairn that we built for Evan Jack, who I dedicated my book to, who owned the property before I did. We take this apart every once in a while and have campfires out of it. You can see some old coals here. It's a great spot to snowshoe back in the wintertime. I've come back here with my kids and had a cup of tea at midnight. I used to tell them ghost stories here. There's a bit of button bush out here. The wood ducks like that. And those round buttons there are actually made up of hundreds of little seeds, and they reach up with their bills and pull them out and eat those in the fall. Great plant. If you've got button bush, you're going to have wood ducks. This is the first of the beaver ponds and part of a large chain that we'll be walking around during the whole day. Right over this way, there's a family of otters. I'm quite sure where they were is down off this. There's a stick over here. It's not grouse. Not sure what it is. The otters were down in under here. And there was snow mounded over this. And in the wintertime, there were tracks radiating out from here out over into the pond and down over here down into Loon Lake through this thicket. And the otters are the most frequent animal I see. Their sign in the wintertime. This is our second largest member of the weasel family. The fisher is slightly bigger and coming back, and it lives up in the trees and feeds on squirrels and porcupines. Fisher have become very rare, but they're becoming more plentiful here, and now we've got fewer porcupines nibbling away at the trees and more fisher, and it's really nice to have them back. Fantastic color in the leaves at this time of the year. Gold, red. Actually, this color's been in the leaves all summer. We just see it when the green gets withdrawn as the temperature and the length of day changes. That's the scientific explanation. I think it's just plain beautiful. Oh, this is great. We all know that fall is when trees lose their leaves, and most people think pine needles don't fall off, but pines do shed their leaves. All of these yellow leaves in here are 2 years old, and these are this year's leaves, and they'll survive through the winter into next spring. So all of these brown yellow leaves are simply being shed by the pine. It's absolutely normal, and this will become a branch. My supervisor when I did graduate work in forestry was a great guy named John Farrar, who wrote the book, which you all have, called Trees of Canada. And Dr. Farrar, or Jack as I came to know him, used to insist that you call pine needles leaves, because that's what they really are. And here you see pine leaves falling in the fall. Oh yeah, and another thing about pines, this growth, this terminal bud on all of the branches, this is the growth, has the growth in it that we're going to get next year. It's pre-formed in the bud, and so pines are always out of phase by 1 year. The growth you get in a particular summer was pre-formed in the bud the preceding spring. A little complicated, but I love pines, and they're coming back everywhere here, which is appropriate because the pine is Ontario's provincial tree. Here's a nice outcrop here with mosses on it. This is polytrichum, this green stuff I'm walking on. Very soft. Nice to sleep in, actually, with or without a tent. This is caribou moss, or cladonia, and a main food source for caribou further north. We had woodland caribou here at one time, and where we still have them in the north, it's a very important food for caribou. Pretty stuff. I wrote a book about this place called Wintergreen. And this is the exact little wintergreen plant that inspired that book. And gee, there's a nice little berry on there. I think I'll just eat it. Oh, lovely fresh berry, as fresh as the Northwoods themselves. It's a beautiful day. Looking at some of the nice clean water that flows out of Loon Lake, and in this case it's come down through the watershed and been dammed by the beaver. Beaver build these dams in order to have a nice back pond, and it floods timber that they can access, particularly poplar, which they like to eat. They can also build their dams there, and it gives them enough water to have a life in. When I was raised as a kid, I lived on a dam too, because people build dams. A hydroelectric project on the English River north of Kenora in northwestern Ontario. Only the dam and the home that I had, the home river, became contaminated with mercury. I returned there after I left as a boy and found signs up and down the river that said, "Fish for fun only." And this was a river that I fished on and ate the fish from. I also saw the Ojibwe people that I was raised with who had lost their commercial whitefish fishery and their jobs guiding sport anglers. So there was a first-hand experience, a very powerful experience, to see what happens when water isn't clean, what happens to wildlife, to fish, and what happens to people too. It was an emotional experience for me, a turning point in my life, and propelled me into a whole career of environmental activism. I hope the beaver that built this dam don't ever see the kind of contaminants that that river has seen. Autumn's glow, October, fall. It's gorgeous, the color, especially when you look at it from here. I'm looking up through white oak and soft maple against a beautiful October sky. There's gold all above me, backlit by the sun. And there's gold below me too, black gold, because this is what makes the whole system go. If we were to take 1 square meter here of this, I'll just put some sticks. Just 1 square meter. Where's my walking stick? There it is. Down there is black gold, and I'll show you what I mean. I once sampled a square meter like this and discovered there were over 3,000 leaves contributed by the trees all around it. Then millions of microorganisms break these leaves down into this black gold, or soil. Great stuff. Over 90% of the biological value of our forest ecosystems is tied up in this top few inches of soil. It's precious. I hope we appreciate it. Now, which one is my walking stick? There's something I'd like to show you right up. I know it's on the trail up here ahead. This is a turtle shell, and it's a big one. It's a snapping turtle. It's not a snapping turtle anymore, and actually it's pretty bleached now. But to me, this is a wonderful thing. You can actually see, from a scientific point of view, this is called a carapace. This is where the tail used to be. The central nervous system ran down through here, through the vertebrae. The head was coming out here, so if you can imagine the head on a long neck, which is why they call him a snapping turtle. But this is an amazing thing. It can be explained by science in terms of genetic mutations and evolution. And it is wonderful that something has evolved like this. And I do find it astounding that people feel that a scientific understanding of nature somehow takes the wonder and the mystery out of it, because I think the more you understand these things, really the more miraculous they become. Beautiful, isn't it? This is an active beaver lodge. It doesn't look like much because the water's down, but there is an entrance right in here, and there's an entrance right in here. You can see where the beaver come in and out. This takes them right in underneath into the lodge, and there's another tunnel right over in here. These entrance tunnels are normally underwater, and they go up to a living chamber. Then there's a ventilation hole up through the top of the structure. And I've actually seen ice crystals around the top of the lodge from beaver breathing in the wintertime. This is what geologists call an erratic. Probably dropped out of a glacier and just got left here. This could have been picked up hundreds of kilometers away, traveled in the glacier, and as it melted, this dropped out. I love that name, erratic. It sounds like they're spread out all over the country, and the glaciers were once, and there are these boulders everywhere. This is Canada. Okay, this might not look like a city cemetery, but this is where I sprinkled the ashes of my very first Labrador Retriever, Walter, who was quite a character. And Walter and I spent many happy hours out here. We used to sit right out here on this rock together. And I've decided I wouldn't mind having my ashes spread out here as well. Right here. And together we'd watch what was moving out in the marsh. Here's to you, Walter. And thanks for everything. This, believe it or not, used to be a beaver pond. And I wish I was a beaver right now because it's tough walking. This was all flooded at one time. It's what's known as a beaver meadow now, rather than a beaver pond. Probably in another 10 or 15 years it'll be a pond again. The poplars growing up around the edge, that's the preferred food species for the beaver. And when it's back, some enterprising beaver will come along here and decide it's time to dam it up again. I'm lucky enough to have some rare Blandings turtles on this property in these ponds, and that actually officially makes this property ecologically sensitive. And somebody was coming in ripping this dam apart, and the water was flowing underneath this log and gushing out here in the spring, and I would lose about a third of my water, which was hurting the turtles. And you can see the beaver are building it back up. Here's where they've been packing mud in here. So they're trying to save the turtles, and so am I. I find it encouraging, since I put this sign up, people have not been destroying this dam. And I think that's good. I'd like to think that when you tell them, and they know they're doing harm, people will stop hurting nature. Over the years, the people I've really had a problem with are those who know what they're doing. They know they're doing harm, but they still don't stop. Sound of a train. That's the CPR line. Been here for over 100 years and helped build this whole area. But the sound of a train, a lot of memories. Reminds me of loading canoes on boxcars for big trips into the North Country, and also it was our only way out when things went wrong. Nice sound. These are some of the big pines on my place at Loon Lake. Particularly proud of these old timers. There's not too many of them around. A lot of the pine was logged out. These ones are coming along nicely, and they're borderline old growth. This particular tree was struck by lightning, which gives you an idea of just how tall it was. I love these trees, I treasure them, and I love to imagine what it's going to be like 100 years from now when we have a true old growth stand in here. We're down to the last remnants of old growth white pine, less than 3% of it left, and we have all of it in the world left here in Ontario. Another big pine. The thing I like about this one is this is what I call a parent tree, because over here, here's the kids. Great pine regeneration coming up. So we have the older ones and the new generation coming along. It's good to see. And here's the granddaddy of them all. Biggest pine on the place as far as I know. Oh, it's a good 100 feet. It's a beauty. As big as it is, it's not as big as the ones that the loggers took out over 100 years ago. The whole landscape's coming back now. A lot of young pine, some of these old timers still there to bring on the next generation. And it's very good to see. In fact, this property once belonged to the Rathbun Lumber Company, but they didn't get this one. Ah, beautiful. Big carpets of wintergreen up and down both sides of the trail. beautiful. Must go 20 meters along here. Oh, look at it. It's green and lush, even in the fall. I love getting down in this stuff. It's green, it's vital. These plants, along with all the other green plants on the earth, generate all the oxygen that we need and everything else needs to live. In fact, this green contract is something that we depend on. And when I see this, I think of what I call the skin of the apple. All life lives in a thin film that surrounds the earth. You and I live there. We couldn't live there on this planet without it. And what modern conservation is about is trying to hang on to the preconditions of life, the evolutionary potential of our whole planet. It's not just about saving individual species. It's about saving the underlying system that makes our whole world tick. And these little plants do their job and contribute to that thin film of life, the skin of the apple, that we all depend on. It's wonderful. It's an incredible planet that we've been given. It's the only one we've got. So I have a conservation agreement, an easement, which is registered on title for the next millennium, the next 999 years. And what that means is that there will be no logging, no mining, no tampering with the watershed, no development. Loon Lake will be left natural. 1,000 years from now, it will have cycled and changed only at the hands of nature. It's interesting to me that people almost have to believe in a heaven or an afterlife, someplace that they go after they live on this planet. I can't imagine a place that would be more beautiful than this planet. When I've imagined or entertained the possibility of going elsewhere and living elsewhere, I can't do it. The landscape, the Canadian landscape, the Shield in particular, where we are here, but all parts of the Canadian landscape, the natural landscape, are compelling and very deeply rooted in me, and I think in all of us. It's part of what it means to be a Canadian, to be linked to your geography. So I can't really imagine being detached from this. I've had opportunities to do that, and it was a pretty short decision. I couldn't live somewhere else. Just one last thing. There's the odd timber wolf finds its way down to Loon Lake, and wildlife biologists have pioneered howling as a way of locating them. I'll give you a 3-part howl.